Bonjour and welcome into the cave. My guest band creates music that feels like a space you can step into to take a break. Somewhere between post rock and shoegaze, there is a softness to it, carried by his soothing voice. He writes in images and stories, sometimes a little distant, to invite us in, but always rooted in something deeply human. It's the kind of music that invites you to slow down, to sit with a feeling a little longer than you usually would. Their latest album, Growth, just came out, and it's one I really think you should spend some time with. Phil of Wildernesses is here with me today. Hi, Phil.
Hello, Julia.
How are you doing?
Nice to be here. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Tired from the tour, I was just telling you, but yeah, ready to chat lyrics.
Yeah, and talking about that, so you just came back from touring in the UK. How was it?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we did 9 dates. I'm trying to speak clearly because my northern accent is a little lazy. Yeah, so we did 9 dates around the UK, starting in Hull, where I'm from originally, and finishing with album launch show in Hoxton in London, which was incredible. We sold out the show, and I was really excited. So yeah, really really positive. Thank you.
Talking about your release show, so you just released your new album, Growth. Can you tell us a bit what this album is about?
I kind of challenged myself with this album to write more honestly. Previous bands and musical projects, I've used a lot of imagery and kind of hidden behind heaviness, I guess. I was in a band that had a lot of timing changes and was quite mathy, so stop start and whatnot. I was always kind of happy with my lyrics, and I was always really methodical about editing lyrics. But yeah, this album, I'm a little older now, and I thought, what the hey, let's dive into some tough topics. Not that I find tough, but that I might be quite gloomy or morose or personal. But yeah, my challenge in this with this record was to write songs that felt relatable to a listener, however were still personal to me. So for me, it's always a balance between capturing an emotion but not being too emo, as it were. You know, it's a fine line. I'm not a fan of cliche. A lot of the songs are about kind of mundane day-to-day life and how we as human beings cope with challenges. I've really tried to use other people's scenarios, so stories. I like a framed narrative. So I did an English with creative writing degree back in my early 20s, some time ago now. And I like the practice of a narrator telling a story about somebody else. So there's a double meaning. So there's a narrator that's feeling some things, but actually when they speak about somebody else's story, it makes them feel something, and then as a listener, hopefully, it makes you feel something. So, really sort of dug into that, and particularly a couple of songs.
This is the way you're writing in your song Summertime 1917, with the lyrics that you chose that are arm's length, grasped a silver box inscribed Summertime 1917. When I opened it, I froze, brushed the brick dust off. The love and war game I sat and read letters set back and forth. George says if we make it home alive, we still can be what we want. How can I take a man's life, but I can't lay by his side? Paul writes back, I adore you, but you're right, our summer dies in 1917. So, why did you choose this line to talk about?
I was just finally happy with the song that I wrote lyrically. Often I go over and over and over editing songs, and this one I edit it a lot, but I just feel like so that song's about a character whose mum's died, and this character is renovating his mum's house to sell on or for others to move into that space. And while he's doing the work, he knocks through a wall and finds a box in between the wall, and it's got love letters in between two men in World War One. So I wanted to capture something again that was removed from the person's grief, and it was something beautiful in itself. I was really happy with the kind of narrative correspondence between these two guys, and hope that it captures some emotion. And I think, my goal was to remove myself from my own feelings. So my mum died 10 years ago. I don't want to write about my own mum dying. I want to write about the feeling of loss and the feeling of grief. for me, I feel like that captures the idea of a beautiful loss, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The interplay between these two men is heartbreaking, but it's also a beautiful thing, and finding that correspondence was something that makes the narrator feel connected to two people that are long gone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But they did exist, and it's like a time capsule almost.
It's funny feeling it's creating, because there is this love that we can feel, and it's also feels very soft, like very kind, and it's during a time of war. So there is really this contrast between several feeling and the loss of the parent with it. It's really creating a big mix of emotions, and that in the end is quite soothing, but also you're not sure.
Yeah. Uncertainty is another emotion. Particularly happy with the lyric, because writing about big topics is difficult, and difficult to do without being cliche. So, for example, the topic of war. You know, how do we write about war
Mm-hmm.
and not be cliche? It's such a big topic, and you know, we all know war is bad, but to write war is bad is cliche. I hope that that narrative kind of captures a lot of different sentiments about, and particularly about. I wrote the song, and it was a male and a female writing letters to each other. And I thought, do you know what? What would make this even more painful, but beautiful? And if it's it's two men, there's also the nature of it's a forbidden love, because at that time being gay was not okay. You know, so these two men loved each other, but they knew that when they got home, even if they didn't die at war, they couldn't be a couple because society wouldn't accept it. So it's all wrapped up in even more kind of pain, I guess, but also makes it more beautiful.
In the beginning, if I understood correctly, you also said that this is one of the songs where you're finally happy with it. So it took you a long time to write songs and actually be happy with them.
Yeah, definitely. I actually wrote this song as a skeleton many years ago. It was in poem form. I worked at a hospice in Yorkshire, in England, when I first qualified as a social worker, and I loved working there. It was an incredible, really human place, and I loved speaking to the older generation and spending time with people and hearing people open up about their stories, and that was kind of I think the stimulus for the poem. And then when we started this band, I thought because we'd written a lot of the time we start with instrumentation, we start with the music, get it to a place that we're happy with in terms of like dynamics and structure, and then I'll go away, write some lyrics, restructure the song a little bit more based on the lyrics, and then add in some guitar layers to sort of generate hooks and whatnot. So yeah, we had the music, and I thought this feels like, for me, it's kind of got the drums are like a marching band, and it's quite waltzy. It's quite a slow and pretty sounding song, but also a little bit gloomy, a little bit sad toward the end in terms of music. I thought, do you know what? I've got something that I think I can rework for this. So yeah, I think it's about 10 years ago that I wrote the initial skeleton, and then developed it. But yeah, I always edit it about 100 times every single song. I can never leave it alone.
So if we take the first version of it, it's completely different from what it is now.
I guess so. Yeah. The general concept is similar.
You were talking about being in a band before, and that you wrote this 10 years ago, but as a poem. Was it in the objective of it being a song someday, or was it originally just for you?
Yeah, probably with the objective of being a song someday. I had a period where it was my mum had a terminal illness, and we couldn't continue with the previous musical project for people having children, all sorts of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And following that, I felt like I had a lot to put down on paper. So I wrote a lot of kind of poetry / lyrics, not knowing what I'd do with them, but hoping that I'd do something again someday. So it took a while, actually. I moved from the north of England to the south, and it took a long time to reconnect with musicians, because it's challenging moving. Yeah, even previous to this project, I've been kind of I've been writing stuff and messing around with production software. I've got a home studio. So I'd started working it into something, but not ever been happy with it. So I was, happy to to bring it to fruition, because I felt it was something that was worth elaborating on.
Yeah, and finally, 10 years later, you found
Yeah.
how to use it.
Yeah.
And I find it crazy that you kept it for 10 years, because there are things that I write and 1 week later they are gone.
I don't know. I can't let things go, Julia. So I have multiple folders on my laptop of things that are like could use, you know. And even if it's not in a lot of the time, most of the time, I'd say the original form is completely changed. But I like the ideas behind the writing or the concept, and think, oh yeah, no, that's a cool idea. Yeah, that's a good starting point for something. Because often when I sit down, you know, the old writer's block, you sit down and think, right, what am I going to write? I've got something here to write to, and I never know where to start. Sometimes things just come, but it's not common. So I like the bank of work to draw upon as, I guess, a stimulation for fleshing out a song.
And have you always been a writer, a storyteller?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably written since I was a teenager, lyrics or poetry. I've been in bands since I was about 16. Since then to now, I kind of never really stopped. Obviously, we all go through dry patches where we're distracted by life, but yeah, I'm pretty consistent. I did a creative writing degree at the University of Hull, which is where a poet called Phillip was the librarian. So he was poet laureate in England for a period of time in the, I think, 80s. So that really got me into the editing process and kind of refining my work, I guess, because when I was younger, I read back and I'm like, oh my God, as we all do. Teenage angst is not pleasant to read back 20 years later.
So to come back on those lines specifically, so you said that when you wrote it, you were working in the hospice and talking to a lot of elder people, telling about their lives. So is it one testimony that inspired you, those lines, or it's just talking about them?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I was confronted with a lot of loss. My mum had just died. People were in a hospice because they were at the end of their lives. Mm-hmm. The initial idea was that I was writing about, I thought, okay, well, I'm writing something about loss. It's just coming out of me. But this character renovating his mum's house was like the initial thing. And then I don't know, the idea of finding something that was interesting felt like it lifted it out of itself. It wasn't just about somebody's personal grief. My aim was to reflect one of the stories of somebody that I spoke to in the hospice. It's not directly representative, but it triggered the idea for capturing something from a long time ago that's probably more powerful now than it was at the time. Like, you know, it's difficult to imagine now that, particularly in the UK, that you couldn't be, you know, in a same-sex relationship, for example, and that'd be okay, you know.
Yeah, and what's sad is that it is legal now technically, but it's still very complicated.
Still complicated, yeah. It's still not perfect, is it? We've come a long way, but still a way to go, definitely.
And you were talking about how you were surrounded with loss in your work, in your personal life. And so writing it, did it make you feel like it was a way also to kind of heal that, or you had so much in you that you had to put some words into it?
Yeah, I think for me, Julia, it's a thing that helps me process feelings. So I'm the kind of person who, I'm not saying I'm the most positive person, because I'm not, but I try and find positives in an experience. So, for example, my mum's illness, I'll always go to, yeah, but I got to spend loads of intimate time with her and got to know better than I ever would have done if this hadn't have happened, you know. And it was a privilege to help my dad care for it, etc. And I'm not a fan of kind of speaking to people about my problems in a negative sense and saying, oh, this was really hard. So I find writing just helps me process like what I might be feeling or what feelings are attached to the experience. I always inadvertently find myself trying to form it into some sort of positive, even when I'm writing, you know, like this is beautiful, or this is human, or this is whatever. And it, if anything, it's escapism for me. Mm-hmm. So it takes me away for however long I'm sat down writing every time. And then once I've got a draft, I have this urge to keep going back to it. So I'm thinking about writing something rather than thinking about how bad I feel or, you know, how sad I feel or whatever it might be. So it's definitely a kind of therapy.
I have no knowledge of therapy except for when I went to see a therapist, so I'm not gonna pretend. But is it also for you a way to, you know, take a step back and not using your story, but using another to see it from another point of view?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why I like this concept of the frame narrative so much. I keep going on about it, but it's a way to like look at the thing from a different perspective. For example, this track, when I was writing it, I thought I don't want to write about me, but I want to write about the topic. So that even in its first sense, imagining I'm writing as a narrator that isn't me. So how would that person feel in this scenario? What are they looking for? What's the goal? You know, they're doing a renovation of a house, but they're also remembering things about their lost parent whilst doing that. And then the next step was, okay, so how would that person reflect on how they're feeling? And then there's another, another abstraction, another separation. So like me reflecting through somebody's eyes, through reflecting through somebody else's eyes. I think talking about it now, it says a lot about how I don't want to address how I feel. How I feel.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was trying to say in a nice way.
Yeah. I think it comes from my work as well, because I work in the helping sector. I work as a social worker, and a lot of the time, if I carried everybody's pain with me that I experience and everybody's challenge or whatever, I just wouldn't be able to function as a human being, let alone a social worker. Finding ways to shut your feelings off but not ignore them, I think, is the key for me. So I'm very mindful of how I feel, but I don't necessarily want to address it every day, because I feel like I need to use it for good or move forward. Rather than wallow, which is one of the things that I dislike about a lot of lyrics that are very overly emotional. I feel like it's too self-indulgent, because loss, pain, depression, anxiety, mental illness, whatever, they're universal experiences. They're things that most human beings experience throughout their lives. So to focus too much on you, I think is quite a narcissistic thing that I don't enjoy. Listening to that from others' work or writing about myself, I'm like, get over yourself, and the goal is always to capture something that I hope other people will think, oh, you know what, that makes me remember something that happened in my life, or makes me feel something that I once felt, or makes me feel connected, or something, something positive and universal, rather than using it as a sounding board for my own feelings. Yeah, maybe I need to go see a therapist, Julia.
You
Probably.
don't. That's very personal, but you don't have to answer. But I would think, as a mental health worker, you're taking so much that I guess you need to unload, and so you're doing it with songs.
Yeah, I try.
And yeah, what you're saying about lyrics, I guess it's a matter of taste also, and there is for every taste, because some people really like when it's written from the first person perspective and the writer saying how they feel, because they would be like, I'm not alone feeling that. But I also see what you mean. And
I agree. I think it is definitely a matter of taste. It's definitely a matter of taste. I think it can be done really well. It depends for me how it's delivered always. And the choice of words is so important. You can say the same thing in so many different ways. And on one hand, it can be tasteful. On the other hand, for me, it can be distasteful and makes me cringe a bit. It totally depends on the artist or the writer.
And also, yeah, you were saying about the choice of words that were, but also I'm not a native English speaker. And so for me, as soon as there are words that I don't really know, it's already immediately sounds very poetic, because, oh, that's an unusual word.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment, actually. So as an English speaker, it's not often that I or many people in the UK listen to music that isn't in the English language.
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to a lot of French hip hop actually. I used to be a big hip hop fan, and like French hip hop is mega interesting. And it's a different experience because I'm picking out like little bits and words and little phrases that I might understand, but generally it's about the feeling that's conveyed without me
Mm-hmm.
actually understanding the lyrics. So I'm hearing the voice as an instrument rather than listening to the lyrics and thinking, oh yeah, I engage with that. So I can still engage with it, but in a different way. Interesting.
What are your inspirations or other artists that write like this that you really enjoy?
I really started with listening to a lot of kind of soul and R&B music back in my teens, and then I got into really heavy stuff when I was like 16, 17. But I never really engaged with those genres particularly lyrically. I think the biggest influence on the way that I write in this project is a kind of probably like folk music and like alternative folk music. So there's a particular album that I got obsessed with in my early 20s by kind of a Americana, like alt folk artist called Hayden. Not that well known, but it was like 10 tracks, and each track had a really, really clear story. It was like reading kind of short stories. And there's this album called Elk Lake Serenade, and there was a particular track that was about a guy and his partner that he wanted to break up with, going camping in the woods. And basically, a grizzly bear comes out, kills her in the night, and drags her torso around this campsite. But it sounds like the prettiest song in the world. It's so beautifully delivered. The music is so delicate. And I think that way of folk storytelling just really captured my imagination. I'm like, I love that, the duality of either a negative subject matter that sounds really beautiful, or a beautiful subject matter that sounds really bleak and sad. So I think over the years I've engaged with a lot of artists or bands that do that really well. So The Cure, Robert Smith from The Cure does it amazingly well. I love the album called Disintegration, is one of my favorites of all time. Again, the happy and sad duality that we kind of really try and capture in this project Wildernesses. There's a British band called Daughter with the most incredible female vocalist. And there's a particular song of theirs. So they're kind of, I guess, a bit post-rock, a little bit indie, I suppose, but really like just incredible band. I've seen them a couple of times. They're unbelievable live. And there was a song on, I can't remember the album's name, but the song's called Doing the Right Thing, and it's about the singer's grandma having dementia, but it's from the perspective of her grandmother, kind of basically like trying to remember things in a room and then finding herself just watching TV over and over again and forgetting where she was. But this song is so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and it's but haunting at the same time. Actually, as a band, generally, I think inspired me a lot. And I don't really think about that band often, but the grand wash, like the washiness and the expansiveness that they capture is something that I think stayed with me, which is why I love post-rock music. But post-rock music is generally instrumental, so again, that was a bit of a challenge for us. We were like, okay, can we capture the kind of feeling of post-rock, but make it work with lyrics and maybe with a bit more of a pop structure, with a few more repetitive hooks like choruses, etc. Anyone else? So I'm just a huge Bon Iver, Bon Iver fan. I love Justin Vernon, the main guy. Too much. I just think his vocal delivery is insanely heartfelt. And again, seen him live 4 or 5 times, and just made me cry every time. I can't deny it. Lyrically, that band kind of comes from a more abstract place, but sometimes when they hit the nail on the head, the kind of feeling in their lyrics like really get me. The one I sent you from Bon Iver, song called Blood Bank, which is on the first EP that they released about 15 years ago. I find the lyrics to the later albums a little bit more abstract and a bit less engaging, but the music is so incredible and the vocal delivery is so heartfelt. Justin Vernon could be saying anything and I'd be like, oh yeah, my God, this guy's incredible. That EP, I feel like, was a lot more honest and kind of raw. a lot more minimal. And the lyrics that's in the song Blood Bank, I just love the use of an image. Two characters go into a blood bank, I'm presuming to donate blood, and they're looking at these bags of blood and kind of humanizing them. It just has a feeling of closeness, I think, without talking about closeness. It's not direct, it's a very indirect way of writing where just you get a really clear picture in your mind. I find it particularly powerful when it's something that you don't think about very often. So, you know, in my day-to-day life, I'm not thinking about blood banks and donating blood. But the image of two bags of blood from two siblings next to each other just is so clear in my mind when I listen to that song. And then the lyrics kind of go on to reflect about closeness and knowing each other inside out, basically. But yeah, I find that a really skillful way to capture a feeling is use a different context, a different object.
I'm gonna read the lyrics right now so the listeners know exactly which one we're talking about. But also a fun fact, you were talking about Daughter, and I also love this band, and I used to have like an intro song to this podcast, and it's my partner who wrote it, produced it, and I just told him I want it to feel like the main influence. I want it to be like Daughter, because I felt like for my podcast it felt like something very warm and a bit nostalgic. And so,
amazing. Yeah. They do have that feeling, that nostalgic feeling. They can really capture that. I can see that.
So yeah, back to Bon Iver Blood Bank. The lyrics are, well, I met you at the blood bank. We were looking at the bags, wondering if any of the colors matched any of the names we knew on the tags. You said, see, look, that's yours, stacked on top with your brothers. See how they resemble one another, even in their plastic little covers. And I said, I know it well. I think it's a beautiful imagery of showing closeness, but in a very, I don't want to say typical because you don't go every day to blood bank, but it's nothing.
It's an everyday, it's quite a mundane thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I just love the imagery. I just think it's so delicately done. You know, when hearing you read it, Julia, was even better than me reading it in my head. Actually, you read it very beautifully.
It's the French accent effect.
It is, probably is. Yeah.
When you heard it for the first time, that might have been a while ago. How did you feel about it?
That song, I forget about it and come back to it every couple of years. It'll come onto my autoplay on Spotify or whatever. I'm like, oh my god, this song! It just feels like a big warm hug, and like I just feel really, like I just feel really emotional. I don't really know why. It just really gets me. For me, I think there's something with connecting with a song the first time you listen to it. Even if, for me, if I can't remember when I first listened to it, I know that I felt something when I first listened to it, and every time I hear it subsequently, I'm probably been brought back to that feeling. That's why I think music's such an amazing thing, you know.
Also, this song, so I knew it kind of, but not really, and so I also looked for the meaning or what was the interpretation of people, and people say so many different things about it. That's what's beautiful about it. Just everyone has their own interpretation and maybe project their story to this song.
I mean, that's great. Yeah, that's great lyric writing for me, isn't it? People are really, really protective of their view. Like, no, this means this to me, and I'm so connected with it.
Yeah.
You need to understand, you know, that's great music or art, isn't it?
Also, when you are listening to music like this, are you more drawn to it just because it feels beautiful or because of how it makes you feel? Just the artistic side of it or emotional, even if both are intertwined?
Sometimes I hear things. Often, BBC Six Music in the UK is like a really amazing resource for kind of new and interesting music. I just put it on in the car all the time, and if I hear something I like, I quickly like put it in my Spotify and save it so I remember to listen to it again. Sometimes I'd say 9 times out of 10 it's the music and the feeling I get from the music as a whole, from the piece as a whole, that engages me initially. Every now and again, rarely it happens, but a lyric will just jump out at me, and it again resonates with me. And I think, wow, like I need to listen to more of this, because if you can write something that makes me feel that from a line of words, I want to listen to more. Yeah, it kind of depends, but I think a great lyric can be a real powerful thing and kind of hook me in, definitely, as a listener. makes me want more. I find skillful writing so addictive.
A lot of times when people listen to music, especially in those genres, we are really looking for an emotion. The music can be as good as it is. If the lyrics are bad, it's not gonna work.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Is there something in your writing that you are trying to do and you still feel like you haven't achieved working on that you really wish, oh, I wish I could do that?
It's a difficult question. It's a difficult one, Julia. I think I just always feel like I can improve. I don't think there's anything specifically. I like the challenge of setting myself a rhyme scheme. Often I think in lyrics it's quite easy to go, okay, A, B, like rhyme one line with the alternate line or whatever, and keep rolling like that. Most poetry that I enjoy is kind of a bit more loose, but still pulls you through the song, through the poem. But again, for a song, I guess it would need to pull you through the song. I like setting myself tasks like, okay, I'm not really going to focus on a rhyme scheme, but I'm going to use like vowel sounds to be the thing that kind of makes it feel like it's flowing as a piece of writing. So yeah, just playing around with form and structure is something I'd like to do more of. In terms of topic, I feel like I've ticked some of the boxes that I wanted to on this record actually. So I wrote a song about work. There's a song on the album called English Darkness, which is about a mental health act assessment. So which is in the UK when somebody's detained under section. So sectioned is a phrase that people use, which is actually incorrect. So basically, going to psychiatric hospital, they're assessed by somebody who does my role and two psychiatrists. It's quite bleak work sometimes, but I actually generally enjoy it. I feel like I'm doing something useful. I thought, right, I'm going to challenge myself to write about work and not to feel cliche or too emo. So that was one ticked off the list, and I feel like I managed it just about. Again, the story's about a worker, and then there's another person that they're assessing, that they're seeing on that day that's going through some crisis. So yeah, that was a biggie for me, and I feel like it was quite freeing to do that and put it out in the world, because I used to really struggle with sharing music, writing, lyric, vocal, melody ideas, anything, and this record has enabled me to kind of get all that out of my system, So yeah, definitely feel freer. And in the future, I think I'm just good. I definitely feel like I'm going to be more confident in zooming into what I want to capture, and yeah, I'm sure I'll get obsessed with each piece at the time. Yeah, I can never leave it alone. Once I start, I'm like, I just go back to it over and over and over and over again.
At first, you didn't want to share more, and so with this album, you did more. Is there something that clicked that made you go, okay, now's the time, I'm gonna do it?
I think it was. I'm gonna be positive about getting older. Actually, I think, Julia. I'm turning 40 this year, and I've been going on about turning 40 and how I can't believe I'm turning 40. And basically, I feel like my life's over, etc. I don't really feel that, because I actually feel like it makes you careless. It's made me careless anyway. So when I was in my early 20s, I really held everything really close to my chest and felt like it was really significant because it meant so much to me. And the older I've gotten, and the more, I guess, I've experienced in life, that challenges I've gotten through, I kind of think, let's just get on with it. Let's just get on with it. And actually, what I find is that feedback is one of the most beneficial elements of sharing. So once I kind of started to get over myself in this band, actually, this was with a group of people that I didn't really know very well. I'd only met a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, when we started playing together. I felt like the feedback and the views of the others in the band was really helpful. It helped me to kind of refine what I was doing, or take a pat on the back and take positive feedback, because these people, it's not like sharing it with your mum or your brother or your partner, who's probably going to say, oh yeah, it's amazing, yeah. I don't want that anymore. I want somebody to be honest. As somebody who writes, when you write and you focused on something for so long, you can kind of lose how it may be read by somebody else or heard by somebody else, because you know what it means to you. You know what you were trying to achieve. But the real test is whether the listener or the reader takes something from anything. Again, it doesn't need to be the same thing, Julia. Like you said, it could be interpreted in many ways. But yeah, I think receiving feedback isn't scary to me anymore, which was the main hurdle I think I needed to get over. Like it was with sharing.
You were scared to get too personal and feel this feedback as an attack, for lack of better words.
Definitely, yeah. But yeah, I care much less now. I'm all, again, positive, been older. I'm like, yeah. Even if people disagree with me, I can say, no. This is what I mean, so let's move on. I'm not going to change it now.
You have this side of people having their own interpretation of things, but how do you hope people will feel listening to your album?
If somebody feels anything, I'm happy. You know, I'm happy if somebody feels anything. If it triggers any emotion in anybody that hears it, I feel like I've done something right, or we've done something right as a band, I should say, because it's a collaboration, and music can be as powerful as the lyrics. We've got a couple of instrumental tracks that I feel like are really emotive. I hope it allows people to, like you said at the beginning, which is from the press release that our amazing PR agent Lisa wrote. I hope it allows people to slow down a little bit and pause and reflect on the content of the narrative in the songs, maybe, or what's going on for them, or things that have happened in the past. The aim was to kind of engage with a kind of nostalgia, I suppose, in some aspects of the album. So things that have happened before, but reflecting on them now. If it enables a listener to allow themselves time to reminisce, engage with an old feeling, a new feeling, I think we've done something right.
And I think you did. I can only speak from my personal experience, but I have several settings where I like to listen to different types of music. And I listened to your album. I was going in the bus or in the tramway, whatever. And usually in this type of settings, I need something that stimulates me. I don't know why, because you're in the bus, you're doing nothing, but I need something very upbeat and I don't know, 2-minute hardcore songs, things like that. And so here I listened to your album while doing that, and it just felt different, but felt really good. And yeah, just taking the time and so yeah, it was definitely a break, and it was a really beautiful to listen to.
Oh, thanks, Julia. I love imagining you on the bus now. See, the power of words. Now I've got a picture of you on the bus listening to the album. No, thank you. I really appreciate that. I think with one of the said taking the time, I think one of the things that we worked really hard on was pacing the album, not rushing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I love hardcore, post hardcore, and fast heavy rock, but there's a time and a place, isn't there? And the feedback that we've received so far has just really warmed my heart. That people who are really into metal, for example, a lot of metal blogs have reviewed it and really loved it, engaged with it emotionally. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, people who love metal and whatever hardcore power violence bands can also love this,
Yeah.
because everybody feels things, and sometimes slowing down is important. So yeah, we really worked on the pacing to try and keep that restraint and go big when it needed to, but not go big all the time,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel in if I say metal community, it's so wide because it can sometimes people can talk about the punk community, hardcore, but all of this umbrella, I feel like Bon Iver, Daughter, other influences you talked about, also big influences. Like I know a lot of people who are more into post-hardcore and everything and listen to this, and yeah, there's maybe post-rock is like the transition maybe between those two words.
Definitely, yeah. I always thought that, and then some people I speak to, like, they're two different things. But I find there's so much post rock in Bon Iver.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much crossover there. It's
Yeah.
just, I guess, more minimal and more more mainstream, because a lot of people who listen to pop music on the radio could engage with Bon Iver, but if you put a post rock album on, they'll probably be like, "What is this?" It's too much for my ears.
Well, Phil, thank you very much for this very nice conversation. And now, what's next for Wildernesses?
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, it's been real pleasure. What is next? That's a good question. We have a cool show in Brighton next week with a band, a post-hardcore kind of screamo band that I really, really love called Chalk Hands, who released an album on the same day as us. So we're playing their release show in Brighton, which is exciting. I'm really excited for that one. And then the next biggie, I suppose, is we're playing Arctangent Festival, which is a really big post-rock, post-hardcore metal festival just outside Bristol in the south of England. So that's a big one for us. And yeah, we can't wait.
I wish you all the best, and I really encourage everyone listening to listen to Growth, Wilderness's new album.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Philip. So for everyone listening, you can go listen to Wildernesses wherever you listen to your music. You can follow them on Instagram, and you can also like, follow, subscribe, anything that helps. Follow Into the Cave on Instagram at Into the Cave Pod. I will talk to you again next week with a new guest, and meanwhile, be kind to yourself. Bye.